Hey guys, what's going on? It's Jay Chains. Welcome back to Web3 Daily News. Got a great interview for you today. We're talking to Matthew Snider. Now, Matthew is a principal at Block 3 Strategy Group. He is a licensed investment advisor, and he's a leader in Web3 corporate strategy and educational workshops. He is a speaker and a writer, and he will be speaking at the Women of Web3 Web3 Summit down in beautiful Miami, Florida, November 30th to December 1st. So make sure you get your tickets if you've not done so already. What's going on, man? How are you?
Good. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you as well. Getting ready for the conference?
Yeah, we're got all my plane tickets booked and hotels booked, and I had to do it a little early. Apparently, there's this big art show that's there that I didn't know about that is happening at the same time.
Yeah, it can be a hectic week down there with all the blockchain and NFT, and then you throw in Art Basel. Man, I'll tell you what, it is a perfect time to be down there for networking in this industry. That's for sure. Do you know what you're going to be talking about at the conference?
Yeah, so we're going to have I think the title of the speech is going to be called "Why the Time to Build Is Now," okay. And it's really focusing on. I'm going to have kind of this page up there that just has Web 2 and Web 3 kind of in a Venn diagram. Mm-hmm. And it's going to leave people with that sort of illustrative understanding that these two worlds are slowly but surely coming together. And you've started a lot of people off in Web 3 that are super tech focused, really early adopters, and they're kind of bringing along everybody in the Web 2 side. And right now you've got a lot of folks in the Web 2 space from an adoption perspective saying, what is this? How do we get involved? And trying to get educated and all those things. And so my vision is that over the course of the next few years, you're going to see this total overlap happen where now there's really no disparity between Web 2 and Web 3, kind of like there really isn't anymore between Web 1 and Web 2. And it's really intended to give us this notion of bear markets are never that much fun, but you can get a lot done when there's a little bit of a cool down period and there's not so much fervor in the market. And that's really an opportune time to start building and creating and building more content, doing more things, getting out there and participating. And when the next sort of wave comes and the next level of adoption comes and we start that bull cycle again, now you're in a really good position to take the bull by the horns, so to speak, right. and really, ride that really well. I think last year was really interesting to see so many people come into the space who were new, and that really certainly drove a lot of interest. And now we're continuing to see, institutional players, people who weren't particularly there before, brands, organizations. Everybody's kind of dipping their toe in a little bit, and so the vision is to be able to tell people like this is always the time for those things to happen. And I was there, 2017, 2018, when this happened before. Mm-hmm. And I kind of, in my retrospect, thought, man, that was a really good time that I should have been building. And I didn't really take advantage of that time as best I could. Maybe I learned and educated myself. But it wasn't really until last year that I started thinking, oh, maybe there's an opportunity here for me to be in the space myself and really participate in a way that helps people learn and gets them educated in a pragmatic way.
Yeah. So what was that step, that catalyst that said, all right, man, I'm done doing what I'm doing and I'm hopping into Web3 full time? I mean, was it a side hustle that started to pay off the dividends and you're like, all right, I can replace what I'm doing now? Or what got you in?
Yeah, so I had spent some time, my background's in management consulting. And so I had spent a lot of time with leadership in the organizations that I worked with, trying to get them to understand what this was and try to implement go-to-market strategies and engage with clients. And again, this was 2019, 2020, and people kind of still glazed over. They weren't really thinking this was the right time. And COVID kind of hit and everybody was sitting at their homes and realizing that, they can engage like we are right now in completely different parts of the world and still get a lot of stuff done. Mm-hmm. And I was actually working to think, I'd kind of been reading this stuff about creating a landing page. And I was thinking about doing it for one of the other jobs that I work at. And I thought, well, maybe I'll do a proof of concept for NFT consulting. Like, why not? Everybody's big on NFTs. Maybe they need help understanding how to mint this stuff on OpenSea or even what the F and NFT is. And so I created this landing page and it was called NFT Consulting. And thankfully I had, there was a woman whose initials were NFT, and she had NFT Consulting as her .com username or kind of URL. And I grabbed the .io version. And it turned out to be really good SEO because I did no marketing, but the phone just kept ringing with people like asking for help about this stuff. And, you know, it was an awesome way to meet people in this space. Certainly learned a lot from people trying to do a bunch of different things with respect to either music or building brands, businesses, wineries were even getting into it. And then we were able to capture a couple really strong clients, a couple retainer clients. And we were able to sell $50,000, $60,000 worth of consultant work over the course of about 6 months. And I was like, oh, this is pretty, I guess this is kind of real. Like there's a way to do this and monetize this. Yeah. And so that's really how it got started. And then what we did was I had engaged with a few partners who actually run an investment fund. And they thought, well, what we want to do is we want to put about low seven figures to work. And we want to try to find projects that we want to invest in. We want to try to build our own projects and so on. And we had kind of been going back and forth about different ways to do that. We had actually tried working to create a virtual band. We had actually purchased a song. We got like the 3D characters created to build like a 10K NFT project on this. And you know, it didn't work, like so many things don't. But one thing they thought would be a really good idea was to say, hey, let's take NFT consulting. We'll buy that company and we'll expand the offerings to Block 3, which we kind of consider blockchain to Web3 and everything in between. And so this was a mechanism to say, let's offer educational workshops, one-on-one strategy for particular brands and organizations who are looking to get into the space. And then the final piece of that was the investment advisory. And so one thing that's really kind of a challenge in this space, you always hear, this is not financial advice. Do your own research and so on. And so I kind of inverted it and I thought, well, what if we could give investment advice on this? And what if we could do it like legally and in a way that was credible? And so this summer I went and got my Series 65 exam completed and we got registered Block 3 as a registered investment advisor. Nice. So we can now legally provide that advice. And that's also going to be a little bit of the stuff we work on at the Miami conference is doing workshops for folks on investment strategies and safety and sort of best practices to get them comfortable with working in the Web3 space and in crypto.
Yeah, and it's an important thing that you mentioned that because I don't feel like there's very many people that actually have that license, correct?
Correct. And well, it's kind of a misnomer because I really wanted it because I thought it would lend credibility. But the true reason that people get it is because they give investment advice on securities. And so it's kind of a timely discussion matter too, because if and when certain cryptocurrencies become securities, you will certainly need that kind of credential to be able to speak about them from an investment perspective. Yeah. And we can't ever take fees for performance, but we can take fees for just general advice, understanding the ecosystem, best practices, how to stay safe, and those kinds of things. And then, you know, later down the line, if you go through a Series 7 or something like that, you can go get a broker-dealer license, which would allow you then to take assets under management for individual people. You can buy and sell crypto on their behalf. And so we just thought this was a really great way to differentiate ourselves in a market that's so saturated with people who have advice to give. And it also kind of has an interesting selling point because now we're engaged. So I'm based in North Carolina, and we're now engaged with the Secretary of State in North Carolina. And I've actually been trying to get them almost as a client, because they might say to themselves, oh, we don't know a lot of people that do this in the space, and we'd really like your ability to kind of help us understand a little bit more.
That's really smart, man. And I, you know, working with it's, if you've been in crypto for a while, you know, you maybe were part of the movement, you know, the cyberpunk and the damn the man kind of thing. And we all know that it's more of an industry now, especially, you know, if you've been going to any of the Bitcoin conferences. I mean, just the one last year, to me, it's very clear that, you know, Bitcoin is an industry now. It's not, you know, the movement anymore. And that being what it is, you know, obviously one of the biggest problems people have, and especially when you think about mass adoption, I mean, like companies that want to get into this now, you know, you're seeing, you know, with securities and utility and all that stuff, you know, with what's going on with the Bored Ape. And now people are freaking out. I'm sure big corporations that wanted to do NFTs are like, well, shit, there goes my plan, because now I don't want to be dealing with a security. So what kind of regulatory clarity do you think that, people need in order to move the space forward? I mean, especially if you're going to be working with, whether it's a municipality or some kind of government entity, I think that's, it sucks, but, because again, now that we're an industry, like we do need a little bit more clarity in where we can go and what we can do.
Yeah, there needs to be a little bit of rigor. I think I mentioned this the other day to somebody in Discord, but one of the critical things I learned in sort of understanding this whole investment advisory piece is that the SEC is not trying to hamper or hamstring innovation. The real thing is for them to protect consumers. And that's far and above like the number one thing. And I was joking with somebody the other day. The reason is because they don't want to be sat down in front of Congress and be pointed the finger at saying like, you didn't do this and you didn't do that. And there's a whole bunch of reasons why all this money is gone and we don't know why. And so basically it's kind of like a CYA thing, right? Like they just want to make sure that they're not getting in trouble.
Right.
And the truth is we kind of need it. There's a ton of scams that go out there. Everybody's kind of getting bit one way or another. There's things that go up and go down, like pump and dump, and they go do all these crazy things. And consumers don't really know. Like if you want to go to Fidelity and get a brokerage account, you have to fill out a bunch of information. They have to get a sense of your experience with respect to investing. They won't turn on margin. They won't turn on options unless you kind of demonstrate that you understand what's going on. But you can go to Binance right now and get 5 times leverage on a short position if you live outside the United States. And that's a little scary in some respect.
Yeah, I mean, as someone who I've definitely done some leverage trading in the past, and it would have been nice to educate myself a little bit more on the process beforehand. But obviously, it's everybody. It's a cost of education at some point. So, what do you think about the XRP case? Like, how do you think that's all going to go down as far as securities and what the SEC is thinking?
Well, as a buyer, I kind of now joke about it because as a buyer in 2017, around $1, really the long-term hold here. But I think it's really the sort of badge of honor saying like you were part of this case, right? Yes. I think it's going to be pretty historic about how they determine this, and I think it's going to be really helpful because I firmly believe that Ripple is one of those technologies that could likely replace the Swift banking ecosystem. Like you've got an antiquated system that's almost 50, if not 50 years old. And you need a new way to kind of do settlements and ACH and all these sort of financial transactions that can really help, facilitate a lot of interactions financially between individuals and corporations. So my hope is that they are able to look at this from the lens of, once we figure this out, it's going to help us sort of pave the way for how we determine this moving forward. So my hope is that they get it right. I think there's a lot of interesting discussion about who has jurisdiction over this, whether it's the commodities or the securities folks. And I think that's going to be one big distinction between whether these kinds of currencies are denominated as commodities or as actual securities. The Howey test is a pretty interesting way to go about it. This is the way that they determine whether or not something's a security. It has to go through a number of gates that determines if they meet a certain criteria. It seems pretty cut and dry, but there's a lot of legal money that's going around to determine one way or another if that's going to be the case. So it'll be really interesting to see. Of course, as a proponent of blockchain and crypto, I'm hoping that it's not debilitating in any way. But I think things like this, where they're getting closer and closer to agreements, is probably really good for the ecosystem, where we're learning a lot more and we're opening the eyes of government a bit more to how they can play as well.
Yeah, I mean, we all, and one of the things that you said, man, and I think that we can all agree on this, is that when we do go kind of look through the history of crypto, and with the people that have lost some money, and having an entity that wants to look out for the greater good of the consumers that are participating, and it makes a whole lot of sense. Does it defeat? At the end of the day, does it defeat kind of the whole mindset of where it came from? Absolutely. But I think people have shown that either greed wins the day, and you can't help certain people you can't save certain people because of the amount of greed that's out there, I guess. And so the only way to do that is to add that, that regulatory stuff on there, which again, we need it. In order to move the ecosystem forward, we need it.
Yeah, I think the challenge is I think kind of hilarious to me, and like very much, screw the man kind of mentality. But like, you can't shut down the internet, you can't shut down Bitcoin. What you can do is take United States organizations that started something and tried to sell something and say, hey, you can't do that anymore. But I don't think anybody should be concerned that all of a sudden the government's going to say, well, all these things are illegal, you can't ever use them, et cetera. I know China and Russia have decided to try to do that, or it's been banned in a number of different places and then unbanned. But
China and India have outlawed Bitcoin more times than I don't even know if we can count anymore.
Yeah, why bother? If you get like a punch card, like the 10th one is maybe it's actually finally removed or something. I don't know, but it'll be very interesting to see how. And I think, for better or worse, the United States is going to have a pretty big impact on how these things are regulated across different nations and globally, as a lot of other nations will follow us in terms of a trade, sort of trade mechanism, or any other kind of way that financial transactions are happening. And I think that that's going to be an interesting challenge.
Oh yeah, for sure. Now, kind of just to totally change the topic of the conversation, one of the things that my goal with this kind of little series that I've been doing is chatting with the speakers of the conference. One, to get to know you. It makes easier for me as the MC of the conference to be able to introduce somebody if I've had a conversation with them, but two, just kind of like highlight of the whole mindset of what's behind the conference, and it's the Web3 Summit, Women in Web3. What are some of your thoughts on the movement of inclusivity, or and that's, I think, a really broad way to say how like the metaverse is going to interpret being inclusive of everybody, and who you are, what you are, that kind of thing. But as far as the movement of women in Web3, like what are your thoughts on that, and how it has kind of changed? And I don't want to call it a buzzword, because I think it's more important than a buzzword. But what are your thoughts on what's happening with the Women in Web3 movement?
Well, first and foremost, I do want to say that it was a pleasure being with you in Vegas, and you absolutely killed it as an MC. So I'm looking forward to your work in Miami. And I think that this is just an amazing way to really build a conference, first and foremost, because you're being very intentional with your audience. You're not saying everybody's welcome and then 90% of the dudes show up, because maybe women might not want to be there, or people who are not white males might want to be there, right? And so I think it's very important that they're intentional with this conference. And I think that it's amazing that they're really focusing on that as their audience and people that they want to bring into this ecosystem. I think that it's a natural progression of kind of where we are as a society, of maybe call it 10 years ago or so, that this sort of software development tech focus is just highly, highly male dominated. And over time, we're getting better and better and better about adding non-males into this ecosystem. And I think that over time, we've done a really good job about that. And it's going to be something that's going to continue to take time. Like, it's not perfect right now. There's certainly not enough women in Web3. But this is one of those catalysts that I really see helping drive that narrative forward, and helping to really let people say, like, okay, this is for everybody. It doesn't matter necessarily what race you come from, what gender you have, or that you recognize. Like, this is all a place for everybody. And there's a democratization of finance and a democratization of information that is happening across the globe. And I think it's really, really powerful. It's going to be really interesting to see what the demographic is of people who attend the conference. But even looking through the speaker list, it's incredible, some of the folks they have on there, and the majority of them are not men. And I think that that's fantastic. I was able to engage with a few of the speakers, one just kind of helping them understand ways that might be better to frame their speech. I'm trying to work with people on getting a better sense of like how to talk through their speeches, or how to present them in ways where people can retain information. But I've also been meeting a lot of really great people, which is great, because I had one conversation with somebody who, she created this sort of club of women who were really interested in this, but they weren't really sure how to go about it. And all of a sudden you're thinking, man, there's just a whole untapped group of people who are not making up any of the participants in this ecosystem. And it's just too bad. Like, you really need to be able to open this up in a way that makes people feel comfortable and not like they're the afterthought. And I think that the way that they're doing that is really intentional. I think it's fantastic.
Well, that's awesome, man. And when you like, consult or, at least give counsel to some of these folks about, the speaking and the style, and are you trying to leave them with, like, you need to give a value add, right? Like, you need to
Mhm.
provide some kind of value, like, to people. Is that like the number one thing that I guess that you would like try to tell somebody, that, if you're trying to get a message across to somebody, like, provide value in any way that you can, or is there something else that you're telling people?
The two things I tell folks, the number one thing is that in order for people to remember you and remember what to take away from your speech or your talk, is to tell a story.
Hmm.
And the first reason for that is that you know that story better than anybody. And you won't get so concerned about giving a speech because you tell the story, right? It's either something amazing that happened to you, or something really bad happened to you, or something really cool happened to you. And so that really resonates with people when you're able to get on stage and connect with them about something that they can also see themselves doing, not about this project that I'm talking about or about this group of people who I work with. I think that's a little superficial in some cases. And we see that kind of a lot at some of these conferences. And so what I like to encourage people to do is really speak from the heart and just tell a story, and
Hmm.
then think through their head, okay, maybe there's two or three things that I want people to take away from this, whether it's education or experience or whatever the case may be. Three very small bullet points that if they left, they think, wow, that speaker really got to me. And they left me thinking about these one or two or three different things. And there was a few folks even at the conference in Vegas who we spoke with, and I'm remembering them now in my head thinking, man, that was a really amazing talk. And most of it was all because of them sharing a story about their upbringing or about how they got in the space.
I really like that. It's like it's like you said, it's a way to connect it, to be personable and
Mhm.
relatable. And I think, without having to come off with a straight chill. And I think people probably really appreciate that. And know that there have been conferences that, set that up, where, like, guys, this is not a shill fest. So,
Right.
make sure that, again, going back to the value add, make sure there's some kind of value, not
Mhm.
just, trying to pump your bag, or whatever.
Mhm.
I think that, engaging with people, telling a story. I mean, even as, someone who does, content creation and stuff, like, sometimes some of the best videos you do are the ones that there's no editing, there's no nothing. It's just you
Mhm.
take the phone and you shoot something, because it's from the heart, and
Mhm.
people resonate with that, right? Like, I think
Yeah.
it makes a lot of sense for them.
And give people credit. They can tell, right? Like, sometimes we think, oh, this will be easy. Like, nobody will know the switcheroo, or nobody will get what I'm trying to do here, or something like that. And like, it's amazing that we kind of don't give people enough credit to like see through what we do sometimes. And I'm probably the first one to stand up saying I've done that too. But it's kind of an interesting takeaway that you want to make sure that folks um, feel like the authenticity there. I think that's something that really resonates with folks, especially in like 2022, 2023.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you got any big plans for Block 3 strategy going into next year? And, one of the things that we had talked about in the beginning was, bear markets are the time to be building, right? Like,
Mhm.
that's where, if anybody's listening to this and looking for some advice, like, this is where millionaires are made. They are made in
Mhm.
the bear market. This is where you build up your network, you build up your chips and all that kind of stuff. And, like you had mentioned, in the beginning of the kind of our little discussion here, Matthew, is that, once the times get better, and once the attention comes back, and the money gets better, you'll be in a much better position. One, financially; two, your network will have grown,
Mhm.
and I'm sure, lives change every cycle. So,
Absolutely, absolutely. So we kind of had three stages of where we are. The first was kind of that, let's get into some really cool projects. This is kind of November, December, January, February, where we kind of took some of the capital that was part of this investment firm, and we deployed it into projects that we really liked. And then we moved to try to build this sort of Series 65. So this was kind of our building a block 3 strategy group, has been building the credentials and building sort of the site, but kind of keeping everything a little quiet. We haven't done any marketing right now. And so now that we've got the sort of the registered investment advisor piece, we actually deployed a full, I want to call it a crypto portfolio. We created our portfolio from just cryptos specifically in I want to say July, August of this year. I will say one caveat is whenever you start a fund, day zero is a really important one to choose because I'm sure some people picked day zero August 31st last year, and we had the benefit of being able to be at the right time, right place, say, okay, maybe this is a good time if you're in like July, August this year. But then the final piece that we're actually working on, and my goal is to have this done actually before the conference so that we can also have something to talk about there, but we're writing a book. And so we're writing a book of content. And what I did was I took, it's called Warren Buffett in a Web3 World. And what we did was, so Warren Buffett, as we know, is a pretty big skeptic of crypto, doesn't particularly like it, doesn't really want anything to do with it, which is unfortunate because he's one of the greatest financial minds in the world. Right. And a lot of folks in the crypto space probably wouldn't look to him for advice on stuff because he's not super into crypto. But what I did is a number of years ago, I read all of his shareholder letters, which is about 1,000 pages of like really dense financial content. And I took notes and I highlighted a bunch of things. And so what we did was we took about 60 of those and we put the quotes in the book. And then I put an analysis and a sort of a discussion about what he's talking about, but all related to Web3. So what we did is we said, let's take his tenets of really successful investing and apply that for Web3 investors and say, look, we did all this work for you. Now you don't have to do it. It's a nice, tight little book that you can take with you, other facts, vignettes, and information about him. But we thought it was a creative way to educate folks and really remove a lot of the boring kind of financial stuff that's in there and really pull out all the gems in a really easy, snackable, digestible way for people to read and enjoy.
I think that's fantastic. I mean, that's super smart because like you said, he wasn't wrong. His strategies were really good, whether it's, it's just new tech that he doesn't understand or whatever, that's one thing. That's, a different conversation, but there are a lot of lessons to be learned in everything that he's said and done, and finding a way to package that up into maybe a more Web3 crypto friendly mindset, I think that's genius.
Thanks. Yeah. One interesting caveat. So he famously said Bitcoin was rat poison squared in 2018. In 2018, when he said that, the price of Bitcoin was $9,800. So if you would have listened to him then, you would have missed any opportunity to double your money kind of right about today, or even the 60K plus opportunity that was there, last year. And then just in 2021, Berkshire Hathaway took a $500 million investment into Nubank, which is a South American bank that is actually warming up and deploying digital currencies at the moment. So that's kind of the ending of this book is, oh, by the way, he didn't really like any of this a long time ago, but because we know this stuff can't really be stopped and it's really pervasive and a lot of new technologies being absorbed by these companies, now he has exposure to cryptocurrencies, whether he wants to or not.
I mean, it makes sense. I mean, and you have to think, these guys even know their strategies too. I mean, at some point, like if he knew the train can't be stopped, if he badmouths it, that gets other traditional investors on board saying the same thing. I mean, like, Mark Cuban recently said, the other day, buying metaverse land was dumb as shit. I think he said it on the Altcoin Daily Show. It's like, to me, like when I heard that, I was just like, let's go, baby. I'm going to buy some more. Like, cause he knows what he's doing. He knows the power of his words. And if that dumps the market just a little, that's a buying opportunity for all of us.
Right. And so you have somebody like Buffett who can move the market, buying Apple stock or things like that. And it's really interesting to go back and read some of the stuff that he did in 1999 and 2000 during the dot-com bubble, because he would say things like, I have no interest in Microsoft or in any of these companies. And the reason behind it was he had no idea how to value it, which I thought was really interesting, because that is a very analogous conundrum to what we have now. How do we value Cardano? How do you value Solana? Like we can't take the same tenets of and tools of evaluating the value of a company that we used to have 60, 70 years ago. So we have to have this new dynamic of understanding what the real value of a token is. And that's one of the cool things about the Web3 space is it's a lot of it's based on community and adoption. And you're going to see thousands of tokens get out there, and some of them are going to do really well and some of them aren't. And in the next 5 or 10 years, you're going to be engaging in financial transactions with tons and tons of different applications that all speak this sort of interoperability. It's like the ability for you to be able to use Delta airline points on your Amex card to go buy something, you could exchange, reward points. Basically, there's not really that much of a difference between them, but valuing these companies is going to be a very interesting sort of puzzle for us as we continue forward.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an interesting point, man. Figuring out where all this is gonna go, especially as we start to see more people come into the ecosystem. I don't know the percentages of people with wallets and interest and all that stuff, but I know that we're not there yet. But when it does happen, it needs to be just as simple as the current way that we transact, and when people are using blockchain without realizing it, I think that's
absolutely.
We'll be in the position that we need to be. Man, I appreciate you taking time on your day to chat with me. This has been a great conversation. Any final thoughts on anything that we talked about? What you guys got going on, Women in Web3, leading up to the summit in Miami, Florida, November 30th through December 1st, baby.
It's going to be an amazing time. I'm just so looking forward to it and getting to see you and a lot of the crew again. Just had an amazing time before, and it's going to be I just am so excited about how many people are going to be there and about the fervor that's going on. And the team has done such a great job promoting it and helping us all get accommodated and figured out like the whole process of everything. So just really looking forward to it. And I think probably the best part is just seeing people in real life and connecting in real life and shaking hands and exchanging cards and all that good stuff. So, looking forward to seeing you there as well. And, just happy to be here and really appreciate the time. So thanks.
Absolutely, Matthew. So really quick before we go, if anybody does want to get some more information on Block 3, I will put some links down in the description. But do they want you to find you there or find you on your personal social media? It's all the same.
Yeah, so my Twitter is at Block3Strategy. You can find me at Matthew at block3strategy.io. And unfortunately, this name wasn't as user-friendly or SEO-friendly as NFT consulting. So once we get the marketing out, it'll probably be a little bit easier to find it. But yeah, at Block3Strategy is where I am on Twitter.
Cool, man. Well, again, I appreciate you taking your time out to chat with me. It's always good to see you, and definitely look forward to seeing you down in Miami pretty soon. It's like you said, it is always good to get in real life with everybody. You can put the PFP and the voice and the Twitter space together for so long, but in real life is that's the way it goes for a lot of us.
Yeah, I should have had mine like right here, like while you're talking, so people can recognize both identities.
Yeah, maybe I want to do that soon. Is get like the float and get my mutant so that so anybody that talks to me is really talking to my mutant.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, a nice pickup the other day too. That was fantastic.
Thank you. Had to get that naked cheetah for sure.
That's right.
All right, cool, man. Well, I appreciate you. Thank you so much. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Jay Chain. Take care.
Later.